Hey everybody, welcome to Live Coding with Jesse. I'm Jesse, and today we're going to do some testing. So, got a few comments in the chat already. I think it's just everybody saying hi. Say everybody. If you're just joining us for the first time, we are building a game, just a really basic children's game to help them learn math. We're building it in React Native Web, which means we use React Native syntax, and then it gets turned into a web app. Okay. This may seem a little bit strange. Why not just use React? Well, if you do it like this, then you could use the same code base for a web app and a mobile app. So that's why we're doing it like this. If you want more explanation, check out some of the earlier streams, like maybe like day 1 and 2, and then I go in a lot more detail about why we're doing it like this. Alright, so this is the way the stream will go. I'm going to start a Pomodoro timer, so 25-minute timer. During that 25 minutes, I'm going to focus mostly on the code and just narrate. When the timer goes off, I'm going to go to the live chat and answer questions. So if you have a question, just hang in there. I will get to it at some point. I do read everything in the chat, so I'm not ignoring it. Just trying to get as much done as I can. Early on when I started streaming, I tried to keep up with the chat as I was coding, and really quickly it became apparent that I would get nothing done if I kept on interrupting my train of thought for the chat. Okay. Great, we have some viewers. There was a little lag on these statistics, and it looked like nobody was watching for a while. Alright. I do want to point out, let's see, our pull requests. Yeah, so we have pull requests that have not been merged. So I do want to merge these pull requests first before we get started. So some of these, like the add the license, is awesome. I can just auto merge this. I'm not going to have to test it. We can just check what files changed, and we've added the license. That's the only thing that changed. It's always important to include a license with your open source work. That lets people know if they can use it, how they can use it, right? So always try to get that into your project as early as you can. So I'm just going to merge that, confirm that merge, and write a little thank you note. If you're maintaining an open source project, I think it's really important to always thank people. Even if you end up not accepting their pull request, it's still, they put in work. So Kartiki, thank you so much. Not sure if you're watching right now or not, but I really appreciate that. Let's check out the other pull request we had. This is add submit on enter key press. So this is awesome. I kept mentioning that I wanted to implement this and then just never got around to doing it. So this looks good. For this one too, I'm just going to check the files because it should be a really simple change. So yeah, so it's on submit, text inputs. On text change, on submit, editing. Actually, that's really interesting. I don't know, so who did this pull request? Let's see. Ibrahim, if you're watching, let me know. I'm not familiar with this, like the on submit editing. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm just not familiar with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and, since this is such a simple change, I'm gonna merge it and we'll just test it like on the fly. Normally, if these were a more extensive change, I would actually pull it down as a separate branch and then test it and then decide whether or not I'm gonna merge it. But for very small changes like this, especially on a little side project like this, I don't really have a problem merging these as is. So let's merge this as well. Alright, so now that should be in the code. We still have some open issues, so let me close these, because this one is closed now. Let's close that. And then this one is that on submit enter key press. You can see that's been merged there. Let's just verify that this is working. So we'll do a git pull. There we go. I need that. So we've done a git pull, and we should have, yep, we have the changes. And so now let's check our app and see what happens. Let me do a hard refresh and just see. Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, so we do have a submit on enter key, and that's really cool. I definitely want to look into how you did that, because up until this point, let's see, our app.js. So we have our press here. So what I had done before was like, instead of this on submit editing, that's wild. Okay, that's cool. That must be built into React Native. Let me see. Basically, it says basically on submit editing will trigger an event provided when the go button is clicked from an Android soft keyboard. Nice. Okay, so this is intended to work with the Android soft keyboard, but when you're doing it on the web, it actually submits on enter. That's awesome. I have some other stuff I'm working on that I'll probably refactor to use this now. Because otherwise I actually just would track the key press and see, like, if it was the enter key that would press, I would submit. But that is excellent. That's really awesome. That's what I love doing this show, because I learned so much. Like even little things like that, which, you know, when it comes to the code, it's going to reduce my code slightly, but you know, I use that a lot of places. So like overall, it's going to have a cool effect, and it's also going to enable functionality on mobile with the same code. So web and mobile will share the same code, which is pretty awesome. So thank you so much for that. That was Ibrahim. Yeah, I think that one was Ibrahim. So awesome. So let's go ahead and close that as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, so now we just have one open issue. I'm sure we'll add to that. I talked with someone on Twitter about some other things that need done, and I need to make issues for those as well. But today we want to focus on testing, right? So in particular, I'd like to set up some end-to-end tests. These will definitely work with the web version. I'm not exactly sure how the test would work with mobile. So once we end up doing a mobile build, then we'll think about the tests for that. But right now, since we're only worried about web, we're just going to go with the web stuff. Yeah, so here's what I'd like to use is Puppeteer, okay, to do a headless Chrome browser. And then, so basically it will mimic what the user is doing. So I'm going to open on another screen. I'm going to open up a package JSON file that I have on another project, and to remind me of everything that I need to install. Alright, so let's go with here's what we're going to go with for our installation. We're going to do a yarn add, and then we're going to give it this D flag, which means it's going to be added as a dev dependency. Right? A dev dependency is not going to be included like in your build, right? So things you don't need for the program to actually run, you can put in your dev dependencies, and then that will decrease the size of your build. But people who clone your repo will still see, like, okay, I need these for testing or whatever you need these for. All right, so I'm going to do chai, mocha, mocha, Puppeteer, and let's see, I think that's it. So we're going to use Jest, but we don't need to bring in Jest because Jest is built in with Create React App. So since we use Create React App, we already have Jest. In fact, if I would try to add Jest, Create React App would give me a message in the console saying, like, hey, we've detected different versions of Jest, and so we're just not going to add Jest, and we're also going to add Enzyme. Now, Enzyme is from Airbnb. I'm not sure what the status of that project is. Airbnb is moving away from React Native, so that may not be kept up to date, but for what we're going to use it for, it's going to be fine. But just keep that in mind, though, that may be a good idea to find a replacement for Enzyme. But I'm used to using Enzyme, so at this point I'm going to go with it, and I'm expecting that at some point I'll probably have to figure out how to do stuff without using Enzyme. So these are just going to install the packages. While that's happening, we can add in to our package JSON another, let's see, so we're going to add in another script. Right, so React scripts, this is what Create React App comes with, already has its test. Okay, so we're not going to use that. I'm going to make another one that I'm just going to call E2E, right? Because these are going to be our end-to-end tests. Okay, and then in our end-to-end tests, I'm going to this is going to be a lot. So we're going to run mocha, and we're going to give it a timeout of, let's see, what's my timeout here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 30. Alright, so that'll be like 30 seconds. So the timeout's in milliseconds. We'll give it 30 seconds right now. That should be enough for what we're doing. Depending on how many tests you have, like you may want a greater timeout. But for now, I think this will be fine. And then we're going to set up some files, but I'm going to call these files right now. So we're going to end up having a folder called E2E and runner.js. So we're going to split out some of our testing into separate files. So we're going to start this up from our runner.js file, and we're also going to do, let me see, E2E, and we're going to have a tests folder, and then anything in that test folder that has the suffix of .spec.js, we're gonna run those tests. Okay. So this is basically this is our command. We're running mocha with a timeout of 30 seconds. Okay, we're using our runner.js file, which you'll see that in a second, and then we're gonna have our anything in our test folder with this suffix is going to run as a test. So let me save that. Oops, failed to save. Okay. Let's I'm going to cut that for a second and just close this. Save the pages, don't save. Let's reopen this. So as these were installing, it made changes to package.json, so we could see we have our dev dependencies now. So that's why it gave me that message. So let's just add that back in and save now. If you didn't see that message, it was just saying there were newer changes that were made. So it was like conflicting, right? All right, so now we have our dev dependencies, we have this set up, our end-to-end tests. Now we need to actually bring in our tests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a previous project that we did on this show. So I believe maybe this was like project 5 or something. I can't remember for sure. But I'm going to go to my GitHub. And let's go to a fork. Let's go here. I believe I had it set up here. Yep. So we have a test folder here, and you can see, whoops, no, that's not it. Those are our unit tests. Here's our end-to-end tests. So we're going to grab our setup from this project, and this will save us a lot of time since we already have it set up. And then we're going to use that. So I'm going to open these so we can just copy and paste very quickly. And we'll just grab like one of these just to get some boilerplate. Alright, so now let's see, runner. And you'll notice, I don't know if Harshit is watching right now this morning. I haven't seen him in the chat, but Harshit set these up initially on this project. So thanks again to Harshit for doing the initial setup on these tests, these end-to-end tests. Okay, so this will be our runner.js file. So you could see this is just basic setup, right? Like we're requiring browser and options, which we'll see those files in a second, and then we're just starting it up and closing it down, right? Starting up our headless browser, closing it down. Okay, and it's nice to have it in this file. Otherwise, we would have to do this like before and after all of our tests. So this saves us some work. All right, so let's go back to here and let's set up our folders, right? So we want a folder called E2E. Inside E2E, we want to add a file called runner, not runner, runner.js, and we're going to copy that in. Okay. Let's go back here and do. Where are we at? Let's close this so I know I don't need it. This is our browser.js. Okay, so let's copy this. We'll go over it in a second. Let me try. I found out about being able to do these multiple desktops on Windows, so I need to get used to the shorthand keys for that. So I think it's like Windows Control. Is that it? No, that's not it. The window Control. Alright, maybe I don't have my hotkeys set up. If anybody knows about how to do these different desktops on Windows, let me know. But I definitely don't have it down so far. I want it to just work just like it does in Mac, but I haven't gotten that down. Alright, so let's verify. This was browser.js, so let's create that. Browser.js, and we're going to copy that in. Okay, so in browser.js, right, we're requiring Puppeteer, so this is where we're bringing in Puppeteer, right, and then we're setting this up, right? So this is just like the boilerplate that you need to set things up. We pull in our options, which we'll have an options file for that, right? So this stuff, like once you have it set up, you'll probably never change it. So this is the only time we're ever really going to look at these files. And our last one, our last setup file will be, oops, did I forget to do, I think I accidentally closed options. Options, yep, there we go. Okay, the options is the easiest file to figure out what's going on. Options.js. Okay, so in our options.js, we're setting our app URL to localhost, right? Which we're going to test locally. We're running our project on localhost 3000. So obviously you change this to whatever you need it to be. And then we're going to run this in headless mode. If you set this to false, you'll actually see a browser pop up and you'll see stuff happening in the browser, which is kind of cool to look at. But if you're doing these tests like constantly, it gets annoying after a while. So I usually just set it to true and leave it set to true. I don't know. We may do like one test run once we get some tests set up where we have it set to false, just to see. Also, if you're having trouble with your test, sometimes just looking at what's happening is a good way to debug. I actually did that yesterday. It was having some issues where the tests were hanging at one point, and after I ran it not in headless mode, I could see exactly what was happening, and it helped me to debug the test. So there are times when you would want to actually see what's happening. So let's close these out now that we have them set up. Let's make our actual tests folder. Oops, that's not it. I want to make it inside here. So tests, and then inside tests, let's add our first test. Hey, if you got some comments in the chat, in about 4 minutes, I'm going to go back to the live chat and answer your questions. So hang in there. Okay. So we're going to have to change this a bit. I don't remember what's going on in this test from the last project, so it may actually work. I think it may just be testing to make sure that something loads on the page. Oops. So we're going to make this, what did we call this one? Page.spec.js. Yeah, let's just call this one app.spec.js. What was that? Yeah, page.spec. Okay. And I will paste this in here. And let's look at what this test is actually doing. Okay, so we're pulling in this expect from chai. Okay, so we use it down here, and we'll get to that in a second. We're also pulling in test from our browser file, right? So what we're doing is, so let's say I don't want a page 2. Let's say describe. This is we'll just put some in there for now, and for now it says page can be seen at /page, and I'm not going to say /page, I'm just going to see at /, right? So just at our home. And so we're going to start our test. We're passing in our browser and our options. Okay, so now we are loading a new page, right? So new page, and everything going on in here is kind of a mix of stuff you can do with Puppeteer, with Chai, with Jest. So it's like, it's very with Mocha. So when I do this, I usually have to have like 4 different documentation pages open. But once you get like a few tests written, you can usually just modify, copy and paste and modify your tests as you go along. so now we are actually going to, and let's get rid of this because we want to go to the home page, right? So this is going to be our URL from our options, which is localhost 3000. Okay. Now we're creating a constant to hold the value of body, right? So, or it's just going to be the string body, okay? And we're going to wait till we find the selector body on the page, right? So HTML pages all have, right, like body. Let me check my timer. All right, 1 minute, and we'll go to the chat. And then now we're creating a constant called Innertext. So what we're doing is we're evaluating the page, okay, and we're looking for all of the inner text that's inside of body, right? The body tag on the page, right? So this is not going to give you HTML. It's just going to give you text that's on the page. And in this case, we want to make sure that 404, which would be a 404 error, does not show up anywhere on the page. So all this test is doing is saying that something loaded when we went there, like something other than a 404 error happened when we went to this page. So this is a very basic test, right? It's not saying much, really not much at all, but this test should run. It should work. So let's test out the test here, and let's say yarn E2E. Let's see what happens. Okay, so our test is running. Home screen can be seen at /, and so we've passed our test. It took 1 second total, so they rounded up. So it's kind of nice. It shows you all the tests that you passed, and it'll tell you how long each one took, and then it'll give you a report of how many you passed and how many you failed. So that's our first test. It has limited usefulness as it is now, but we will add on some more tests that will be a little bit more useful, and hopefully that'll give us confidence to be able to make changes, and we'll run our tests and be sure, if our tests pass, that our changes have not broken anything. We also, if we have time, we might set it up so that the test will run automatically when you try to commit, and you won't be able to commit unless the test pass. So I think that's kind of cool to set up. There we go. Here's my timer. All right, so I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to go to the chat, and I'm going to start way up at the top and try to get through as many questions as I can. And I also need a drink. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to skip through all the hellos, but I'm just going to give one big hello to everybody that's saying hi. Okay, we have a request. Ravi says, please make a video on JavaScript and AngularJS. I am not... I have very little knowledge of AngularJS, so I'm probably not the best person to make that video. But we do... I think we do have some Angular videos on the freeCodeCamp channel here, so check those out. Let's see. Kartiki. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, so please let me know how I should pronounce it. But anyway, they say thank you for merging the PR. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for submitting the PR. That was super helpful. I definitely appreciate it. I always get so excited when I see that pull requests are being merged. I need to put more issues in so that anybody that wants to work on the project will know what to add. So maybe I'll try to do that today. And if you all think of some issue or some feature or see a bug or something, feel free to put an issue in the GitHub repo as well. Michael Creel said, and now the wait for Puppeteer to install. It actually installed really fast. So if I was trying to do the stream on my laptop, that would have been the end of the stream. Like, it would have just, the frame rate would have dropped. Like, it would have taken forever. But on this new machine, like, I'm very impressed with my new PC so far and its performance while streaming. All right, Michael Land says, what is React used for? React is used for creating... Sorry about the yawns. React is used for creating web apps, like single-page applications, progressive web apps, but React Native, which is what we're using, can also be used to create mobile apps. Basically, like you can create a wide variety of things with React because it has the ability to render to 4 different platforms. So your JavaScript, HTML type code can be transformed into something that can be run on a variety of devices and platforms. So it's very, very cool. So I mean, that's a very like short summary and leaves out a lot, but that's basically what I use React for. Danjuma says, FYI, for your information, React also builds VR apps. I have seen that, and I really, really want to build a VR app at some point. So maybe that can be one of our next projects. Maybe we could have Battle Math VR. Who knows? But I definitely want to try that out. O-Town says the screen is blurry. Okay, let me know. Is anybody else having a blurry screen? On my end, like, all the analytics are saying the stream is fine on my end, but let me know. It should be... I should be putting out 1080p, so if your connection can handle it, you should be getting a 1080p stream right now. Nikki says, have you tried Cypress for end-to-end testing? I have not tried Cypress, but I'm interested in hearing more about it. James Lark says, sir, please tell me what should I choose, software dev or web dev for better job opportunities? It kind of depends on your area and what's in more demand. So I guess it really does depend. Like, I don't know where you're at or where you're looking at to actually get a job, but there are a ton of jobs either way, web dev, software dev. And really, like, the line between a web dev and a software developer are so blurred now with things like a web developer could create a desktop app or a mobile app using the same tools they used to do web apps, right? So the line is very blurred. So you probably could learn the same skill set essentially and get a job doing either one. I'll tab bottom left corner. Okay, so we're saying Alt Tab. Yeah, let me try this actually for a sec while we have this up here. So I can Alt Tab and see these screens. Okay. What I want to try to do though is do let's see. What I want to do is be able to do a shortcut to just automatically switch to another desktop. So like I can tab and I can see like there's 2 desktops here. But I don't want to even see it. Like I want to get to the point where I can just do like, wait a second, did that? No, that's not it. That's what I did last time. And the guy that sits next to me at work yesterday we were messing with it and trying to figure it out, and I think he was able to do like Windows key, Control, and then arrow keys, and it let him switch. But it's not working for me right now. Let me see, maybe Windows Alt, Windows Shift. Yeah, it's Windows Shift, that's it. Okay, awesome. So Windows Shift lets me go back and forth. This is actually weird. It's changing both of my screens though. That's weird. Alright, so I don't want that. I need to look into this more. So what it was doing was when I'd switch, so like right now on the screen, and you all can see that I'm in the code, but when I press Windows Shift arrow key, it shows this screen, but on my other screen, it's now covered up my my streaming software, and it's added the code over there. So I need to mess with maybe the settings or learn more about that. But if you've ever used a Mac, it's very easy like to go between your desktops. So I'm trying to like get that same ease of use on Windows because I'm just so used to it from my Mac. All right, but anyway, let's write some tests. So I'm gonna mark down here where I left off at in the chat, so I can come right back to it. Let's see, 753 looks like a good place. 753. Okay, so I'll come right back to there and continue on with the live chat after we do another Pomodoro session. Yeah, so I may not do this entire session. I just would like to get one additional test written and then try it out. So let's see. Let's go back here and let's think about like what we would want to test. So right now this is basically saying can we see, we expect it not to contain a 404. All right, but that's not really, like, potentially that's not telling us a lot, because the page could not show anything really, and this test would still pass, right? So let's add something that's going to give us a little like better indication of what's actually going to happen on the page. So let's expect inner page to contain, and I believe we have the word battle math here, so let's expect it to contain battle math, right? And let's see if that passes, right? So not only do we not want a 404 error, but we want it to say battle math, okay? Really, if it says battle math, we probably don't need that 404 error, so let's just get rid of that, right? So I want to know, like, not only like is there something there, but is there this title there, which should be there on all the pages, right? Let's see. Run this. Oops. There we go. Okay, so that passes now. Still took about the same amount of time. Actually, a few milliseconds less than the last time. So now, I think, I'm no expert in testing, right? But I think this is a little bit of a better, it tells us more, right? It says, hey, we went to your homepage and the title of your app is actually visible at your homepage, right? So if this test were to fail, I know something is definitely wrong with my app. So I broke something for sure. Okay, let's try to make another test. So we can copy and paste this it, right? And we can make a completely new test here. So we could say, let's look at our app for a second and say, what else? Let's restart it, see what our basic thing is. Like, what else would we want to see on the page? And if we didn't see it on the page, it would definitely be a problem, right? So I guess submit. I mean, we would want to be able to see on the very first page like a hero and 3 enemies. Let's do one for now. Let's say we can definitely see a hero character on the page. We'll keep it really basic, right? So what we'll do is in our app.js, we need to give our hero an ID so that we can pick them out on the page, right? So we have our hero right now is just a view, right? Eventually this will hopefully change and it won't just be a square, but for now it's a square. So normally we could just put an ID here, but in React Native we want to use native ID. So actually with React Native Web, if we just wrote ID, it would work, okay, but it won't work with web. Like it'll give us, at least I think it'll throw a warning at some point that we can't use IDs or something like that. So it's been a while since I did that, but I do remember getting some sort of warning about that. So anyway, the React Native way to add an ID is with native ID. So let's just say hero, right? And usually, you remember, I mean, this is like basic HTML stuff, but you only want to have one ID on the page, so they have to be unique. So there should only be one hero on the page, one hero ID. Okay, when we get down to enemies, what we'll probably want to do is, instead of an ID, we would want to use a class, or we would want to give each a unique ID by saying something like the ID equals enemy and then like the iterator. So it'd be enemy like 0, enemy 1, enemy 2, right? So it's just whatever you can, the ID can be whatever you want, but it has to be unique. Let's see. Whoops. I meant to go back to our test. All right, so now that we have that, what we can do is we can say, let me go back to my other screen here and see some of the other tests that I've set up. So what we can do is we can check for the HTML. So let's do one where we actually check for the inner HTML. Okay, so let's get rid of this for a second. And can we get rid of this too? I believe we can. Yeah, so let's get rid of all this and just show kind of a different way to do this. So right now we're still getting our page, all right, and we're still awaiting, like we're going to go to that home page. But now let's do a let result, and we could probably make this a const, really, const result. In general, it's good to use const unless you really need to use something else. So we're going to just call this a result. We're going to say await page dot eval. So we're going to do eval, right? Page dot eval, and then we're going to evaluate body. So remember last time we actually made a const for body selector for body, right? Now we're just going to skip that and just say body, right? And then inside here, as our second argument that we pass to eval, right, we're going to put a function, right? So we're going to say we're just going to do an arrow function. So and we're going to inner, and we're going to do HTML this time instead of text. So what this will do now is, before we just had the text, right? So we couldn't, for instance, like verify that there was an input on the page with this or anything. This is just giving us the text. Now we'll actually be able to see things that are in the HTML, in the markup of the page. So we'll be able to do something like, we expect the result to contain, and we could say, what do we call this? Hero. Now normally the hero would not show up under text, right? Because that doesn't actually display as text in the page. It's an attribute of an HTML element, right? But now we should be able to see that. So let's save that and run our end-to-end test. See if we've done it correctly. Yep. So we can see that title, Battle Math. Oops, and I forgot to change this. So let's change this to visible at slash, and hero, let's say hero can be seen at slash. Let's change it up so keep it the same. So title can be seen at slash, hero can be seen at slash. Okay. So now we'll just see, like, in our testing we'll get better messages. See? Title, hero. And so it's good to give these good names. So describe, you can give like the name to the whole group of tests that you're doing, and then under the you can give a name to each one of these, a descriptive name to what you're testing. Then when you see like a test will fail, it'll be a lot easier to figure out what you need to look for to fix it if you give nice descriptive names here. Alright, let's see how much time I have. I'd like to do at least one test where we actually like do something on the page. So let's see. We need to do a little bit of setup in our app.js. So in order to get things from the page, let's see where we're at. Okay, so right now we have inside this text, we have our value, our operator, and our value 2. But that's going to be hard for us to get access to in our test. What we really should have is we should have IDs for each one of these, right? So let's do that. Let's switch this up, and let's separate these out so that we have 3 text, and let me verify that our styles won't get messed up by this. Styles.mathText, where are our styles at? Up here? Okay. You know what, I'm going to move these styles down below, because I like moving them down below so that this first stuff that you see is more like the actual like logic of the component. So I'm just used to that. So that's what I'm going to use for my projects. There's nothing wrong with putting them up top. That's just what I've been used to. And like I said, I just like to see, as soon as I see the component, first thing I'll see is like the functions, the logic. I'll scroll down, I'll actually see the markup, and then the styles at the bottom, because usually the styles tell you the least about what the component actually does. It's just my experience. So our math text, all it has is a font size and a padding right. So we're going to get rid of that padding right because we don't want that everywhere, right? So let's get rid of that padding right, and let's make sure we put that on the view itself. Where's the math row? Or actually, you know what? We can put that on the text input. So we have styles input. So we had a input. Oops. I thought I had the there we go. What was that again? Padding right. There we go. Okay, so we're to move this and make it a padding left, or better yet, let's make it a margin left. Okay. Alright, so now the input is going to have a margin left, right, which should take care of this. So now we can actually copy and paste our text here without worrying about weird spacing happening. Okay, so now we're going to have text. Oops, totally messed that up. What I wanted to do is get rid of these. and this, and then for this one we'll get rid of that, and then actually I guess we'll need another one for our equals. There we go. Alright, so first off, let's see if this even displays properly. Hey, it does. We're missing some spaces, but that actually looks okay. I may like that better without the spaces now that I think about it. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'm going to leave it without the spaces for now. But now what this will let us do is add native IDs. So we can have a native ID for each one of these. And our native ID will be like, well, let's just say val 1, and then for this one we'll make it val 2. For this one we don't need anything, and for this one we'll just say operator. Okay. Alright, so we have that. Now our input needs a native ID. And let's say native ID equals answer. Let's say answer input. Let's keep it the same. Answer input. Okay, so normally like everything we're doing is like camel case, but generally like within the DOM you would usually use your hyphens for things like classes and IDs. So that's why I'm kind of keeping this, because this is going to end up being in the DOM, right? Okay, I think that's all we need. You know what? Let's put this native ID on this as well. Native ID equals. We'll say this is submit. All right, great. Now, when we come back to our test, this will all make a bit more sense when we actually write out our test, right? So let's say can submit answer. Let's see. And we need a way to check. Let's see. Not only can submit, let's just say like correct answer reduces enemies by 1. Okay, so if we actually test this, this is going to tell us a lot about our application. So this is an ambitious test, right? It's going to take a couple of steps, but that's what I want to try to do. Let me see. All right, 7 minutes. It's going to be rough to get into 7 minutes, but we'll see what I can do. So we're still going to go to the home page, right? And we are going to actually let's do one more thing. If we're going to see where the enemies are, we need to give the enemies some at least classes, right? So let's say class name, right? So in React we need to use class name, because in JavaScript class is a reserved word, right? So we're going to say class name, and let's say enemy, right? Since there'll be multiple enemies, we need to use a class instead of an ID. Yeah. Okay. So now we need to have the user have some type of action, right? So for that, we can use our type, right? So we already have our page element, right? So we could say page dot type And this literally means we're going to type something into the page. So the first parameter that we pass in here is going to be the ID of the place where we want to type, so our input. So this is going to be the answer input. So we're going to type in our answer input, and inside the answer input, we're going to type answer, right? But I need to create that. So let's create answer. Answer is going to equal val1. How are we going to do this? Val1 plus, let's just do it plus val2. Val1 plus val2, correct addition. So for this one, I'm just going to test addition. Okay, so correct addition, that'll make it just a little bit easier since we're running out of time. Correct addition answer should give us it should be val1 plus val2, right? So let's do const val1, and const val1 is going to be, let's see how I can get this. I think I can get, let's see, I might be able to do it like this. This might be overkill. I may not need all of this, but let's see. So instead of body, if I eval the ID val1, and then instead of inner HTML, I get inner text. This should give me that value. And JavaScript should be able to handle the fact that it's getting this as a string, but it'll know that, like, I want to add these as numbers. At least I think that'll be the case. We'll know really quickly if that's not the case. Okay, so now we're grabbing value 1 and value 2, and I'd like to actually see, like, is there some way I could do this without, like, faster, or maybe in only one line? But for now, I think this will work. So we'll get the values, we'll get the answer here, and then we should input the answer, right? Then after we input the answer, we're going to, why is my my indentation is so messed up. We input the answer. Now we need to click the button. So for this click, let's say, I think we can just do a page.click. So we can do, I need to do await. Sorry, I forgot await here. Let's do await. I need to fix all this indentation. Page.click, and then this is going to be our submit, right? We named it submit. Okay, so after we do this click, now we can see the result, and we can evaluate our HTML, right? And we want it to contain, and here's where I may have to look this up. Let's see what time it is. Okay, only have 1 minute. No. Okay. We may not get finished with this, but let's see. Expected to contain. Let's see. I think this would be in just get. There we go. Find selector. Find the number of rendered child components. Children. No, support for calling all child elements. Support for counting all child elements. All right, let's try the first one so we don't have that much time. So find selector. Expect find to have length of. Nice. Okay, so we can do to have length of. Excellent. So we should expect it to have length of 2, right? So let's just grab this whole thing. No, I don't want wrapper. I don't want to have to use wrapper. Okay. Let's try it with contains. My time is up. Wrapper.contains. Alright. I need to get out of this shallow wrapper because I'm not using the shallow wrapper. Selectors. Static rendering. No, I'm not using render. I'm using. We're only using one thing from Enzyme. What is it? Expect. That's it. Or no, it's not even from Enzyme. We're requiring that from Chai. What the heck am I using from Enzyme? Nothing. I'm not using anything. I don't even need Enzyme. Sorry, I got confused at the beginning. I use Enzyme for unit testing stuff, not for end-to-end testing. Yesterday I was doing, the last 2 days I've been doing unit and end-to-end tests, so apologies for getting that mixed up. What I need is Chai, or not, let's see if I can do it with Chai. Find number of elements. Support for counting child elements. Let's see. Yeah, alright, let's just find this. There we go. Expect. Here's this wrapper again. To have length of. Let's see if I could just use this without the wrapper thing. Okay, so we want to expect our inner HTML to contain expect results. Look this up. Call children. You know what? We're going to have to do a part 2 of our React testing. So next time we're going to do part 2 because I'm out of time. Here's what I need to happen though. So let's leave a little comment in here so we know where we left off at. So at this point I need to let's say there should only be 2 elements with the class with the class enemy. Okay, so that's what we need to check for. Let's get rid of, I guess we'll leave it in for now, but I mean that's not, we know we have to change this, right? So what we have so far is we're getting our values, we're adding our values, we're putting that answer into the input, we're clicking submit. Then we should check to make sure that when we've clicked submit, we've taken away the enemy. So it starts by default with 3 enemies. So now there should only be 2 enemies left. So we need to figure out a way to check how many elements on the page have the class of enemy, and that should be equal to 2. If it's equal to 2, our test passes. If it's not equal to 2, our test fails. So that's the next thing we need to do. Let me do a get status. Also, I think we can do a yarn remove enzyme. Did we add? Yeah. So we'll get rid of enzyme. now that I've realized that I messed up and I don't actually even need it. Okay, and now we can do a git add. We'll do a git commit m, and we'll say add tests for homepage. Do a git push. Okay, so now all of this is available on the repo. If you want to check it out, submit a pull request, whatever, it's there. Now I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I can, and I will have to end. I can't let this go too long because I gotta start work. But I'll see how many I can get through. And 7:53. Okay, so we left off at 7:53. All right, so the question from Talent Scout 77 is, what program is that he is running? Visual Studio Code. I think that's probably what you're asking about. Niba says, is the secret to coding practice? Yeah, absolutely. Practice. Practice is like, you got to do it. You're not going to be good unless you practice, right? Even more so than anything else. Like, you should be actually coding more than you read tutorials, online videos, books, like whatever. The thing that will help you more than anything is practice. When you get stuck, then go to the tutorials and the books and everything. And like as you get more confident, you'll probably be spending more and more time coding and then just using the other things as a reference. There's nothing wrong with doing the reading and stuff. You can't be coding all the time, but the thing that's going to level your skills up more than anything else is actually coding, trying to figure things out, working through problems. Michael Creel says, I'm thinking of doing a project with geolocation. Any recommendations for packages? I don't know any packages offhand because the browser has the geolocation stuff built in. Assuming you're going with a browser. If you're going with mobile, I'm not sure. So you may not even need a package. You may be able to just directly call the geolocation like from the window object. So I would check that out first and see. Now, I mean, I don't know about backwards compatibility, but with, let's say, older browsers. But at least with newer browsers, you should be able to get that geolocation straight from the browser API. O-Town says, I cannot see the letters at all on the screen, very blurry. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Did anybody else have that same issue? I mean, if it's okay for everybody else, then it may be your connection, O-Town, which I'm sorry if that is the case. Let's see. I could try to make the font a little bit bigger. Let me know if anybody would like the font to be bigger. I'll try to do that next time. Let's see. Tech from 5th asks, how long can it be, and is this a full tutorial? Usually I go for about an hour, and it's not really a full tutorial. This is more just kind of a code along where like everybody kind of not only watches me code but helps code either through pull requests or through suggestions in the chat, and we just kind of code a project together. I do my best to explain things though, but I wouldn't exactly call it a tutorial. Master says, test the test, and Nikki replies, who watches the watchers? Somebody says Laravel with a question mark. I've never used Laravel, so I don't know very much about it. Let's see. We have React or Angular. I mean, I know React pretty well, and I know very little about Angular, so I'm going to choose React, obviously. Like, objectively, which one is better? I don't really know. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do and what skills your team already has. Master says, what's the difference between web dev and software dev? Honestly, there's very little difference now because of the fact that web dev is moving so much towards progressive web apps that act like web applications, that you can actually use something like Electron to make it a desktop application. Like the line between software dev and web dev is almost non-existent now. So I would say there's very little difference, but maybe I'm sure there are other point of views that probably would have some good arguments the other way. Vishal says, I want to know about C programming. I don't know very much about C programming myself, so I probably can't help you there. Let's see. Prakash says, are you testing React Web or native? Okay, so the testing that we're using actually works for React on the web. So like this would work for normal React, right? Because we're starting up a browser and we're testing what's in the browser. So this would not work then for a React Native mobile app. So once we go to deploy this on mobile, then we'll have to add other tests, like another testing solution for mobile. So it is the case that when you do this, you can share a large amount of code, but there are certain things that you probably have to implement for each platform, right? So routing is one thing that you probably have to implement more than once because of the way mobile handles routing versus the browser. And then obviously your testing is, especially your end-to-end testing. Like if we were doing unit testing, maybe you could keep the same ones, but end-to-end tests are something that you're probably going to have to implement twice. So that's a good question, though. Political World War News says, help me code. What do you need help with? Master says, might I ask, what is the purpose of tests? Basically, the tests are there so that you can be confident, like that if you make it, so if you write your tests well, any change you make to the code, if you change something and then you run the tests and they all pass, you can be sure that your change has not broken anything. So it just gives confidence. So for a little app like this, you could say like, oh, well, I could just manually test it myself. Well, you could, but for a larger app and over like the long term, you're going to spend a lot of time manually testing. But if you automate your testing like we're doing here, you don't have to actually do the tests yourself. It's a good idea to still do them occasionally, but you don't have to do them with every change. Instead, you run the tests, and we're actually going to make the tests run automatically when we change stuff, so it'll be even easier. And then you'll know automatically before you try to deploy or anything like that whether or not you've broken something. Let's see. Chris Bennett says, what game are we making? And he also says, hey, stop cheating off your other computer. It's not cheating. At some point, I actually figured out how to do these tests. I'm just not going to refigure them out on the stream. I'm gonna cheat. So I'm looking at my own code just on another screen. Basically, the game we're making is just a very basic math game for young children learning how to do like basic math and starting with addition. Did I say? Michael Creel just said hero be seen at. I think I messed it up. Title can be seen. Hero be seen at. I messed that up. All right, there we go. There's a good. There's a good pull request right there to fix my improper grammar here. Good catch on that. Chris Bennett says that actually looks pretty decent. Not gonna lie. Are you talking about the game or the code or the test? I don't know. So which should I use? Next.js and React.js? When should I go to use? use Next.js if you need server-side rendering. Let's say for like search engine optimization purposes. If you need that server-side rendering, I highly recommend Next.js. It will handle so much of the stuff for you that's generally kind of complicated, so definitely use it for that. If you have no need whatsoever for server-side rendering, then you might be better off going with Create React App. The only other thing that's really big that Next gives you is a built-in routing system. So it may be also good, like if you don't need the server-side rendering, but you also like don't want to mess with doing your own routing, then maybe use Next as well. But I love Next.js. Definitely an awesome tool. Chris Bennett says, is React.js similar to Angular? There are some similarities, I would say. Let's see. View similar to Angular. Chris Bennett says, I need to learn how to use Linux, only familiar with Windows and Mac. Yeah, I mean, Linux, the cool thing is if you know a lot of the commands for Mac, like in the terminal, they're the same as they are on Linux. So, like if you're going to set up a Linux server, a lot of the commands to get around in the terminal will be the same. Oh, actually, what did this say? Alright. I'm going to have to finish. I might not get to all the questions here. I might have to finish up because I got to go to work. But how about this? If I didn't get to your question, put it in the comments to the video, and I'll try to get to it. Or you can wait till the next stream, which will probably be Friday morning, and I'll get to it then. But thanks all so much. The next stream, we'll finish up with this test and maybe add some more. Yeah, so be looking out for that. Hopefully Friday morning, right around the same time, like 7:30 or 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So thanks so much. Yeah, until Friday, I guess have a great day or a couple of days. And I'll see you then. Thanks again. Bye.